Initially, let me introduce myself. I'm Owen Smith. I chair the Board of Trustees. I have the great privilege of chairing the Board of Trustees of the Institute of World Politics. And I want to say to you, the class of 2013, congratulations. You're here. You've made it. In a few minutes, I'm going to have the opportunity to give you a diploma, and you have a hood. That's what we call this funny thing, that you wear to recognize that you are that you have a master's degree. Many of you I'll be giving certificates to. Congratulations. We're proud of the faculty here at the Institute of World Politics. We're proud of them. We're proud of them because they are what Dr. Linchowski likes to refer to as scholar practitioners. They're people who have done it and who have also studied it. And you are the same. You are a group of scholar practitioners. Many of you today are already doing it, and now you've added the academic credentials. Some of you have come here right from college and are going out into the world, and your responsibility is to make that world a peaceful world. I recall my own graduation. I already had a job. I was coming down here to work in the administration of Dwight Eisenhower. That shows you how old I am. And, but then the world was in turmoil. Korea. We were worrying about Korea. We were in Korea. American troops were fighting there. When I graduated my graduate program, Vietnam. American troops were fighting there. Today we're worrying about Korea again because there's a young man who probably, I'm afraid, may not be as mature as we hope he is, with his finger on a nuclear weapon. The only difference is that a few weeks ago he was on the front page of every newspaper in the country. Today he's not, and the only reason today he's not is that we have worse problems on the front page of every newspaper. We have the terrorism problems, and they are worse problems. The difference when I graduated was we knew who was who. We were in the middle of the Cold War. We knew who were the good guys and the bad guys. The Soviet Union, we had built a military structure to react, to protect ourselves from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had built a military structure primarily, although we've heard some stories to the contrary, to expand their control over the world. An example was a great lecture I heard a couple months ago, Jim Potet. I hope you all heard that. When he talked about that day, the day in American history that we probably came the closest to nuclear war. And it was because of work of people like Jim Potet that we didn't see nuclear war that day. And ultimately, we won the Cold War. We won the Cold War without a single shot being fired. And I'm happy to say that there are many people in this room right now on the faculty of the Institute of World Politics who had a lot to do with the fact that we won the Cold War without a shot being fired. Dr. Linchowski was on the national security staff at the White House. He was the Soviet expert. A friend of all of ours, many of you have had him as a professor, was at the Vatican. Ambassador Milady was at the Vatican. We have, Dr. Linchowski and I had the honor of preparing and sending and giving to Judge Clark, Bill Clark, who was the National Security Advisor during that era, an honorary degree. We awarded the honorary degree of Doctor of Laws to Bill Clark about 3 months ago. People here, the faculty here, were very much involved in the planning And it didn't just happen, it was planned. The downfall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. I'm going to tell you a story that I guess some of the faculty have heard, maybe the students haven't heard it that often. I guess many of you know that my late father-in-law was the Director of Central Intelligence, Bill Casey. And one day, he said to me, he said, you know a company in London, right, that makes mimeograph machines. Now, for a lot of you who don't know what a mimeograph machine is, but those of us on the dais, we do. It was the predecessor of the copier. It was a device where you could make copies. I said, yes, I do. He said, get 50 of them, okay? Somebody will call you with an address where to send them. I was called. The address was in the Vatican. So we sent 50 mimeograph machines to the Vatican. I had a feeling I knew where they were going. But at a luncheon in the Institute of, I don't know, it was about 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, Commencement was there. I told him the story. He says, oh yes, we went out and picked them up at a church just outside of Warsaw. Now, how they got from the Vatican to Poland, I don't know, but that was the underground newspaper for Solidarity. And it was that kind of efforts, the fact that we and other groups worked with people like Mrs. Thatcher, who just passed away, Pope John Paul, and Ambassador Milady was very much involved during the early part of the Bush administration in keeping him informed of what was going on and briefing. It was because of those efforts that we were able to do away with the Soviet Union, do away with the Cold War. But it has been replaced by a problem which is even more of a problem, the war of terrorism. And it's you, I charge you, the graduates, it's going to be your responsibility to do with this war of terrorism what your predecessors and what your faculty did in bringing about the end of the Cold War. Last month, early last month, the day of the Boston run, the next day I was talking to a friend of mine, a priest, who was the pastor of the Basilica in Boston. And he said, well, I can't leave my rectory. The police won't let me leave the rectory. But there's a police car parked out front in case I have to go to the hospital to give last rites to one of the people injured that day. It's a horrible thing to think that we have to have a priest on standby to go to give the last rites to people get killed because of terrorism. We have to address this, and I'm not sure how we're going to address it. I charge you, the class of 2013, with the responsibility of going forward and winning that war. And I charge my colleagues on the board, I charge the faculty, it's our responsibility to make sure that the degree you're receiving today is one that you're going to be proud of for the rest of your life. This is an institution that is an important institution to America, to the United States, and I, as chairman, and I know my colleagues on the board agree that we're going to go forward and make this even a stronger and a bigger school every year. And I thank you very much. Again, congratulations.